Hey, it's Navid here, and in this session, we will talk about the do's and don'ts of AI content creation. And I'm joined by Maddie Lambert, who is the Director of Marketing and Sales at Originality.ai. That's essentially an accurate AI checker, plagiarism checker, and fact checker that lets you publish with integrity. And we are going to get into some really good stuff in this session. And without further ado, let's dive into it. And warm welcome, Maddie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. You are part of Originality.ai, of course, and we can
I
get into a
am.
little bit what you do over there. But tell me first about your journey into the world of content marketing and what it is that you do with AI now, because you are very deep into this as you're working for an AI startup. So I'm sure we can get into a lot of cool use cases for how you used it, because you had, I believe, an agency before and then you
hmm
exited that, and then now you're working as the director of marketing and sales at Originality. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my journey, which got me here, started about 8 years ago. I was a co-founder of a small content marketing agency where we created human written high quality content for clients. We had about 60 contractors, who did all of the writing. It was a pretty big operation. We did several millions of words per month for our clients, and we operated that business for 5 or 6 years. And then we started, it was going really well. And then we started seeing the different tools like Jasper AI starting to sort of like creep in. And that was obviously going to change the trajectory of the content marketing agency model drastically. So we saw the waves of AI starting a few years ago with tools being implemented like that. And then as these tools, we started using these tools too to test them out and see how they worked and see how they could amplify the content creation process as well. So we played with them a lot. We weren't anti AI at that point, and we're not, and we're still not. But yeah, I guess we saw the wave coming, and we made a decision that we would exit the business and get in front of another problem that we saw coming. So originality, that's where originality came into play. We felt it was important because we'd sat in the position as on the content marketing agency side, where we were like, this is going to cause a lot of problems for editorial teams, because we had clients coming back to us saying, hey, is this AI written? Is it human written? We can't really tell. We don't want AI, because people were very scared of it at that point, and they didn't understand the implications. No one understood the implications of AI use. So people were automatically afraid of something that they don't understand. And so we wanted to get in front of that problem and figure out a way that we could detect whether AI was written by humans or AI was written by AI.
Yeah,
So that's where the idea of originality came to play.
yeah.
And
I
so
just
we
wanted to
actually
ask
started.
like something around this, because you saw a lot of people like I saw the way with Jasper and
Yeah.
Copy.ai. That was the first early ones they built on top of OpenAI's API. It was the early days, right? And then they got a lot of users early on, and a lot of people jumped on board. I wasn't as impressed like for content writing for blogging, but I saw kind of the use cases. A lot of people are using it. I didn't use it for my writing. I still had a small team of writers helping me with certain things because it was much better. Now it's obviously changed a little bit, so I'm sure we get into that. But yeah, I had the problem as well to see like I was sometimes worried if my writer is taking things from these platforms. I wanted to check it, so I had the same problem a little bit to double
Right.
check
And
this.
that's exactly it. It's not so much for us, it wasn't so much like, hey, if you use it, AI to help you write a blog
Yeah,
post, that's not the problem.
yeah,
It's pretending that you didn't use
yeah,
AI to
yeah.
submit your blog post where the problem is. And so we believed in sort of that transparent transaction. And with the introduction of AI, we felt like that transparency in where your content came from was getting blurred. And so we wanted a method where we could check for that. And I think that's a pretty fair thing. If you're a client paying $150 for an article, you want to make sure that you have the ability to know whether it was written in 5 minutes by a large language model, right? Versus a human who took their time, who were like a thought leader in this space that they're writing the article on, and whether there was like a true human thought that was put into this piece of content. And I think that that's a fair thing to know when you're paying money for a service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting also what Google has said about this. They're changing their mind a lot, but I think initially they were, I guess, against AI content in general, and then they changed their opinion that they are not penalizing AI content. They're penalizing basically bad content. And like, yeah, what is AI generated content? Like, I mean, is that pushing a button and getting the article? If it's a really bad article, it's not good. But if you're adding your personality and different stories and case studies and things, it might not be detected. So maybe we can speak, because that's how I do it. Because I might take an original piece like this video, could turn into a blog post. That's not going to be detected because it's unique content, right? So there's different ways to produce content. I think people are doing it the wrong way a little bit. They're like, you need to have some knowledge. You need to have some, it's funny, originality to your piece, to your content, right? That's the brilliant name. And so that's basically what you're adding when you're adding stories from, let's say, experts like yourself. I might add that into a blog post. So that's not going to be detected because it's going to be unique. It's going to just be in my blog post that I have these experts features, for example, or these quotes or something like that. So I'm sure we can get into that. And you have seen a lot of different things when it comes to what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I am somebody who has seen a lot of content being published on the web. Like I've seen it all for a number of years now. And I have to say that I'm still unclear on Google's stance, because they say one thing, but then you see a Google update and then the content that's being penalized is predominantly AI produced content. So I'm unclear, and I think everyone is kind of unclear on Google's actual stance. And then I've seen sites that have been sold and then repurchased that have been denied access to Google AdSense. And the only reason for that has been, like, after we've sort of investigated, the only reason for that has been the use of AI content.
Wow.
And
very, very
so
interesting. I just have a comment on this because I think what kind of content do they have on these sites? I would be interested. Is that really obvious that it's like nothing? Like, for example, if I would take a video, I mean, I would that's like my content. I'm just like using that to speed up the process because I like creating a main piece of content. That's how I see it. I've spoken to a lot of experts about this kind of in the way they produce content and what they use AI for. I use my time for things like this, right? This is my time. And I like to speak to experts. Then I might take this into a tool like Content at Scale, like to put the link. I get a really in-depth blog post. That's still like the words. I can, of course, spice it up a little bit to add things if they don't add exactly the headlines and stuff like that I want in there. But it's still my content because that didn't exist in Google before. So I don't know if you have any opinion of this way to produce content versus kind of, I guess, the way that is getting penalized and losing rankings or even like getting de-indexed, which is even worse.
Right. And so I think that that's a really great way to do it. And so just to clarify, are you putting like your link in and then you're having your video basically transcribed?
It's not a transcription. Actually, what it does is, I don't know exactly behind the scenes, but they have probably some prompts in the way they write content, like any tool like Jasper or something like that. This is just more for replacing like a team of writers, because this is not just a transcription. They are, of course, they have access to this via the YouTube. I don't know how they pull from the link, right? And then they are getting like, if I want to write about this keyword, or maybe they even suggesting the keyword based on the video. I took a video I did with Neil Patel. He just wrote this like 3,000 word post. That was pretty incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Very
like
cool.
was like really the only thing I would have changed was the NLP keywords inside. I would have tweak things a little bit to increase the score, like with Surfer and the Content at Scale. They have this score system. A lot of tools have this now, so you can like improve it. And that was a little bit low from the beginning, so I would have just sprinkled that in. But that might have been because we didn't mention a lot in the actual video, but it was a really
Right.
good. That was something I could have published like 90% done, like pretty much.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Amazing. And I love that approach. And so, what I think the problem is, I think that using AI to amplify your story or to amplify your piece of content or to, give you the bones and then you build around that. I think that that's a really, really great and smart way to use AI to help cut down on your time. Where I think people are going wrong with it is they're using AI to replace their voice. And in those instances is when I think people get penalized. So when they essentially get lazy around the content creation process and aim to replace themselves with AI content creation and publish an article without adding a little bit of their own flair to it, without editing and adding a human voice to it, I think that's where people are running into issues.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. You have, as you said, you have seen a lot. You also produce a lot of content.
Yes.
What makes really great content in your eyes, and actually something with or without AI, basically?
Yeah. Just honestly, thought leadership is what I think makes great content. And I'm the director of marketing and sales at Originality.ai. I put a lot of content out, and I use AI to help me a lot in terms of how I'm structuring things, where I'm mentioning specific things. But I put a lot of thought and a lot of time and a lot of energy into figuring out what I want my message to be. And I think that that is the crucial step in the content creation process. And I think that is what's being lost in a world saturated with AI content.
I think what we can do, like give a specific example how you would use this for, let's say you wanted to create a blog post or something about a
Yeah.
specific topic. What's your
Mhm.
process like from beginning to end to publish that? And explain also how AI might play a role in that content production.
Absolutely. Okay. So, a big piece of my marketing strategy right now is a data analytics piece. So, we have a lot of stories that we want to create using data that we pull using our tool. So, for example, we have a ton of data studies that show the increase of AI usage in Google reviews, for example. And so, when I'm creating content, I want to think clearly about what I want that headline to be. And then I want to get the original data from that story. So we use our tool. We have a data team that will basically scrape and find the instances that AI has been used in Google reviews using our API. And then we're able to sort of craft that into a data study. And so once I've got the data team to create that, then it's up to me to communicate that story in less sort of nerdy terms. So be able to take that data study and turn it into like a human story. And so that is where I use AI, where I'll share the main points with an AI and say, hey, craft me some sort of outline for this blog post using this data. And then it will spit out pieces that if I like it, I'll take it. If I don't, I'll reword it. But it saves me so much time in terms of the actual content creation process. But the main and most important piece of that is that I read that data study thoroughly and like I understand it thoroughly before I put it into an AI. Because I think that's where people go wrong. The thought leadership is not there if you don't understand the data. And so that's where, yeah, I think people go wrong and how I craft my content with the help of AI.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned like the thought leadership. I think that's what's missing when people are creating anything with AI and they don't think that, what's my knowledge in this? Do I really understand this? Do I have the expertise to create on this in the first place? I'm sure you've seen that people are using AI to spam Amazon, right? That's very common. They are writing these Kindle books. They are pretty much useless. And it's the same that's going on with Google. Even to some extent on YouTube, a lot of people are doing these faceless YouTube channels and AI generated basically. And it's in a lot of ways, it's spam, I think, and they're going to crack down on this at some point because it's going to get more and more with this. I think that's a little bit, I guess, dangerous if you want to have great content. But I think, do you think like Google in general does a good job and cranking down on this, or do they sometimes not get it right? What's your kind of opinion on this, and what do you see?
Not yet. Like I don't think I think they're panicking because I think they don't know. I think they don't really know, and maybe they just haven't been forthcoming with their stance on it. But I don't really think they know what they're penalizing. I think that they penalize very, very blatantly obvious uses of AI content. We see it all the time with like Amazon affiliate sites that just like product reviews and stuff, and don't do any sort of editing within that process. So I think we see it primarily there. But I know that that pain has been felt across the board for many sites who use AI content, whether it's in a good way or in a lazy way. So
No, I
yeah,
agree.
I don't.
It's interesting because before, just going back to your example, before I was writing all my outlines myself, and I think that was pretty time consuming. Now, let's say let's talk a little bit about reviews and like specifically like writing like best of articles and things that can be useful, of course, if you have like an affiliate site or you're doing that for your personal brand, you want to write about some tools you might be using or something like that. So I have
Yeah.
usually a process for this because I have the structure of my posts, and I have written many of these. So I can probably take that into ChatGPT or whatever favorite AI tool you use, and I can say, give me an outline similar to this. I think that is really easy. Like I don't need to come up with it again. I can just, and maybe they can give some ideas. Maybe they give some suggestions that I didn't have before. Some ideas I didn't think of for this new piece of content. So is that kind of how you do it? Because I'm sure you have a lot of content on the originality. I've produced a lot before as well. Like, do you take the existing pieces and then you make the outlines based on that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what you're doing is correct in that you already have an outline, but you're not replacing the research side of things. You're still doing your own research to see, hey, what tools do I want to cover? What tools do I want to feature in this article? It's not like you're asking the AI to come up with those.
That would be like that's so interesting. Like a lot of people are doing that. They just write a review. What tools? What's your opinion on this piece? If you like, you want to have 10 best online course platforms, for example. The
Right.
AI might get a few right because it's like pretty common knowledge which ones are popular, but it might not get all of them right. For sure
Right.
not. So, and it's not
Yeah.
gonna it's not gonna get my opinion right. So I think, how would you use it in such a piece? Would you just use it for the outline, or is there anything else, maybe
Yeah.
the FAQs or something else in the piece of
Yeah.
content you would use it for?
Definitely just for the outline and any sort of like thought leadership, any sort of like raw data, any sort of opinion piece is coming from me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a crucial piece to not lose within the content creation process. And we see things all the time. Like we have, and I think we've been pretty clear on our stance in terms of being used in an academic setting, from Originality AI's standpoint of being used in an academic setting. We're not for academia, but it can help pinpoint instances where essays and stuff have been AI generated. And we've had students actually come to us and say, hey, I like generated my topic using AI, but I reworded the entire thing. And I'm like, okay, did you reword it or did you put your own opinion piece in there? And they're like, oh, I just reworded it, but it's totally different than it was prior to that. And it's like, well, we can still detect when there's a lack of thought leadership. Like it can still detect when there's a thought leadership piece missing. And is it really your essay if you just reworded it? Is it really your opinion if you just reworded it? And that's like the crucial piece of essay writing is that, and thesis writing is that you have your own opinion and your own sort of thoughts and points and supporting evidence to support your thesis. And so that's the piece I think that's missing these days.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that because I think that's for a creator. I think they are producing a lot of original content. They have,
Mhm.
let's say, YouTube videos. They do short form content on their social media platforms. A lot of people are on LinkedIn these
Right.
days. It's booming, right? So I think a lot of people have it. I think if when we are talking about specifically blogging, a lot of creators, they're not really. I mean, blogging was all the rage before, but I still think having a piece of content on your site is valuable. So what would you
Mhm.
say to them? I guess they're already producing content, so that would be easy for them to just add thought leadership
Right.
to their content if they actually took some of their videos or took some of their other content like we talked about and actually
Yeah.
putting onto a blog. So and they could
Yeah.
use kind of the strategy you shared about kind of coming up with the outline and things like that. But then they have the thought leadership, right? So
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the way we should be using or encouraging people to use AI. We're not anti-AI at all. We love AI. It's great. It helps amplify our message, right? And so I think that's how we as like creators need to continue to use it and use it to make you smarter, make you better. Don't use it to replace your human voice.
What do you think about tools that are like? I'm just interested. We have Julia McCoy on at the summit as well, so I'm
Oh,
just gonna see
cool.
what. Yeah, I love
From
what she's
Content at
doing.
Scale.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
love
she's
her
talking about
newsletters.
something called AI optimized blogging. So I
Right.
want to hear your opinion on this a little bit, and that I guess
Yeah.
you have similarities a little bit because she's all about having really good content. But what Content at Scale does, which is interesting, is like you just put in the keyword, and you can also put your YouTube link. But let's say you don't have a YouTube video, you just want to add a keyword, or you don't even need to add it. Sometimes they give you suggestions, right? But you have the topic in
Mhm.
mind that you want to write about. You just put that in. You can say even what voice you want to write, like Brian Dean or some favorite marketer or something like that. And it
Right.
does a really good job in doing that. And actually,
Super cool.
they're saying it's the most human AI writer, basically. So I'm
Yeah.
just interested to hear what you think about this approach. Maybe it looks really good out of the box. Would that be something you would almost produce or publish and then basically adding your spin to it, or is this not an approach you would take personally?
So I've never actually used Content at Scale, but I read their newsletter every week. I believe she sends it out on Fridays.
Yeah,
They're always interesting. She's got a great voice. I really respect what they're doing, but I've never used it.
yeah,
I love that they're building it to sound human. And I love that there are features that can amplify that sort of like humanness to it. But I would caution anybody using any type of AI to proofread your stuff and make sure that it
yeah,
has the like thought leadership and the message that you
mm,
want.
yeah,
And again, don't with any AI, don't use it to
yeah.
replace your thought and your humanness.
Yeah, totally. I tested it actually like maybe 10 months ago or something. And then I tested it now during the session because we did a live demo and basically showcase a little bit. And even Julia was impressed. Like, I think a lot has improved with the model and how they are tweaking things because they're of course, using something for OpenAI's API, but they are having their own
Yeah,
prompts behind the scenes and things like that. So this has gotten a lot better.
super
So
cool.
even we were really impressed. But I would say the same as you. If you're getting a piece back, it looks good, add personality, add some more stuff to it, then it's going to
Yeah.
be a lot better. And I think that's the approach I would take anyway, because you're saving so much time in this process to get that content, but then actually adding what you want into it. And just a stat, which is interesting to see, that this actually works quite well. They had like a year ago, like zero traffic, like nothing. It's a pretty new company, of course. Now they have like
Mhm.
600,000 a month or something crazy. At least she said 500,
Amazing.
600. Yeah.
Good for
So
them. That's great.
I
I
mean, they
love
have
to
a
see
team.
that.
They have a team, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to see that. And clearly they're building something super valuable that people want. And there's a product market fit there. And that's really great. I'm happy for them. And I'm happy that they're aiming to make it like as human as possible. Um, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool product. I'll have to check it out.
I think there's some other writers that are not doing like in a good job with this, and that's when people are let's say go into ChatGPT. I think you can use it to create blog posts as well, but that's when we can talk about the hallucinations and things like that. I think you have some good stuff to say about this because I think with ChatGPT and my partner in this project, Jan, he's using ChatGPT quite a bit for certain things. I'm using it as well for outlines and tweaking headlines and all this, but for specific use cases when it comes to writing, let's say a blog post, when I know exactly how I want it. So I want it to be something that's, either write like the way I want it, or someone who is trained on exactly the way I want to write it. And ChatGPT, I have to go so many steps to get it there, like to so many sections, and I just don't get patient enough to do it with AI to write my content there. So I use it for like emails and things like that sometimes, to tweak things based on something I've written before. But for in-depth blog posts, just too time consuming for me, and it doesn't do the best job in my opinion. So yeah,
Totally.
interested to hear what you say about this.
Totally. And I think that we have seen it so many times where people have gotten into a lot of trouble by producing AI generated content and not going through it line by line. And it sounds so convincing. But like anything that has a statistic or a fact has to be fact checked. Because there have been so many times where it has sounded so convincing and it's called an AI hallucination. And people don't question it because it sounds authoritative. And so it gets published and then people get in trouble. So for example, perfect example is we were approached a little while ago by an investigative journalist who had purchased a mushroom picking or mushroom cookbook off of Amazon. And they said, hey, do you think you could like run this book through your AI detection? And of course we did. And it came back 100% chance that it was AI generated. And then we actually got a like mycologist, so somebody who specializes in fungus and mushrooms, to read the book and come up with an opinion on its content. And the mycologist, he said, this is the most irresponsible use of AI ever, because it's it's being published by an expert that doesn't exist. So this like PhD that supposedly wrote this book didn't actually exist. It wasn't a real person. It was an AI hallucination. So this book is being sold under the pretense that it's written by an expert, which it wasn't. And then the recommendations within the cookbook were really dangerous, and in a couple of instances actually suggested that specific types of mushrooms be used in meals, and they were actually poisonous. So real life consequences to AI generated content in those instances. And so a blog post reviewing the best tennis shoes, that's not going to have like really impactful consequences if there's an AI hallucination in there. Cooking specific types of poisonous mushrooms for consumption, real life dangerous consequences, right? So there's responsible use of it, which is what we advocate for. And so having a method of being able to fact check certain things that are generated by AI is important.
I think is essential. It's absolutely essential. And I think we have seen this in history of like the evolution of the internet as well, with Amazon and things like that. There's a lot of people who have published books on there, and they are not doctors or something, and they have actually written health books. That's dangerous. And now, in the rise of AI, we are seeing this even more because it's so
it's
easy.
an amplification of it.
It's an
easier.
amplification of this, and I think it's dangerous. Like for blogs and things like, anyone can start a health site today. I think it's.
Right.
I think I'm interested to hear your take on this, because it hasn't really been regulated so much yet because it's so rapid. I mean, AI has existed for a long time. It was machine learning. Now it's like AI, generative AI, and all this. It's been in the big companies for a very long time. It's just now we are, as kind of creators, business owners, now we are starting to embrace this technology in the workforce and things like that. So it hasn't really been regulated. Yeah. So what do you think, like in terms of the ethical uses and what needs to happen? Because of course someone who's writing a book like that or writing a piece of content, and someone is taking action by something that is completely false, and they should have checked that it should be some form of penalization or something like this about this, right? I don't know what should happen.
Right. So I think that I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough question, but I do think big companies like Amazon, who are providing the platform to self-publish these types of books, need to have a mechanism of checking these things before they're published and made available. I do think that the onus, obviously people shouldn't be doing it, but people are going to do it. And so I think the onus is on the platforms that are distributing these things to ensure that they are written by a credible source, and that they are factual. So I do think the onus is on them. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how fair that is, but yeah, I would say that it would be on a company like Amazon. They have the resources to invest in these types of technologies that can detect these things. And so, yeah, I believe that it would be on them.
It's difficult as well, because if it's getting really good, like it's really convincing, they need to almost have a human going through. That kind of goes against like what everything should be, want to be automated. Amazon is all about this. They're like having a lot of automated processes and things like this. And it would be interesting to see what they do. Also interesting what Google does, like with the content on the blogs, like how they're actually how do they know if it's a credible source? And in the future, what's in? I spoke to Mark Joyner. He's like referred to as the godfather of internet marketing or the digital marketing. But he's very interesting because he is like, what Google has sometimes an agenda, right? It's like, during the lockdown and all this kind of stuff that happened, it just pushes something in Google. And I think that's what can happen as well. How do we know what is good when you're searching for, especially important topics like searching for a health-related thing? How do we actually know what is good and bad? And same when people are going to ChatGPT or something more than they are going to Google, how do we know that that's actually right? How do we know that it's fact-checked and things like that? So I'm interested to see what you have any takes on that.
I think that Google is facing an existential crisis right now because they're trying to balance the AI world, but they know that more and more people are using AI tools like ChatGPT as a search engine, right? And OpenAI is going to get more and more sophisticated and are going to be able to start linking to things. And it's just going to get better. And I think that Google is feeling very threatened by these types of tools, because if people are going to be like more willing to go to an AI to search for things versus the Google search bar, that's going to impact them greatly. And I think it already is. So I think they're in a tough position where they are facing that existential crisis piece. But that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Do you think SEO? Do you think SEO will still be impactful, or what do you think will happen with SEO and things like that, search-based content?
Right. So I think that's where that's going to suffer the most, is if people aren't searching for things. SEO kind of becomes a little bit redundant, right? It becomes less and less important, and so I think that's the piece that gets threatened with Google.
They are saying, I mean, I that's why I think YouTube has a huge potential. It's not, I mean, it's search-based, but at the same time, they have this algorithm-based that you can show up on the front page, even if you're a small creator and things like that, depending on what you do. So I think I've seen a lot of people have been all in on SEO before. Now they're going all in on YouTube because they see the potential is there more than it is on Google. Because I mean, if you search for most topics, a lot of big sites are owning that for certain terms and things like that. You have to kind of know what you're doing. It's very technical as well. You have to know exactly what you're doing. You have to backlink. There's a lot of things that goes into it. But let's say on YouTube, there's different things that goes into that too, producing the videos and things like that. But you don't need to do that same type of technical work as you would to rank or get views. So I don't know if you guys are doing that as well for your content, or if you're just doubling down on written content. I don't know what
so we are kind of doubling. We're kind of doing everything. Like we are doubling down on written content for, like, we have a massive content plan. And so we are doubling down on written content, and we're making sure that it's really good content, but we are doing a lot of social media stuff. We're doing some video, and then a bunch of paid ads. But like our and a huge sort of like backlink effort as well.
I see you guys are featured a lot because you get a lot of backlinks and stuff. Of course, when you have a tool like that, it's pretty, I mean, it's one, if not the best tool to do this thing, the most accurate, tool for detect all of this. And plagiarism is a big thing as well. You do basically everything that you need to
Yeah.
avoid all these things we've been talking about.
All of the pain
They get
points. Yeah.
penalized. Yeah, exactly. So do you have anything else to say around this? Because I feel it's just interesting that a lot of people are not doing it right. And to produce the content, I think we need a plan, right? So you mentioned that
Mhm.
you guys created like this plan where you produce content. How do you decide what content to produce in the first place so it actually makes sense?
It's still very, maybe we're old school, I don't know, but it's still very keyword research based. So what people are interested in, what kind of things people are searching for. So it is very, very much keyword research
Yeah,
based currently. But we're trying other things. We're getting into the media more. Digital PR is something that
great.
we're exploring right now. So we're not putting all of our eggs in one
Yeah.
basket like we used to, right? For our content marketing agency, that's all we did.
Hmm.
All we did was the content marketing piece, right? And
Yeah.
that's what worked back then.
If
But it
you
is
would,
an
I have a question
evolving.
around this. If you would
Yeah.
start, actually, if you would start a new blog, I mean, now you have notoriety with originality, of course, you're getting like backlinks and things like that. It's a stronger brand. But let's say you would start brand new site, you wanted to, would you focus on the blogging piece to build that up? Or what would you do? And also, how would you use AI to amplify all of this?
Oh, great question. So if I were to start my own personal blog,
Yeah, the site like a business. I mean, let me rephrase. So, I would say
yeah,
you start over from scratch. You lose everything, right? And you
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
start something new, and you want to use AI, of course, to amplify what you're doing to reach your goals, your results faster. What would you focus on?
Yeah. I would focus on video. Yeah, I would get a really great videography company to come take videos and start a really high quality like TikTok
Yeah.
channel and have a supporting blog and stuff. But I think that like video, I think that like YouTube Shorts and stuff are big right now. Um, yeah, I think that's what I would do if I were to start
And
a new
yeah,
business from scratch.
would you? Okay, that's short form content. Would you? How do
Yeah,
you think about the long form content? Because that's the background I guess you come from in the content marketing world. So what
yeah,
how would you actually do that? Like how would you take what you're doing with the short form and get them over to the long form and like amplify this and use kind of
yeah,
AI
yeah.
technology to do this better?
Right. So I think I would do what I'm doing with Originality.ai's blog and try to create something unique and something from a different angle that not everyone is doing, and then amplify it that way and have like really, really unique stories to tell, and supporting unique original data.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
yeah.
that's what you mentioned a lot of times. Like the data you bring, that's the research, and no one else takes the time to do this original research. Essentially, is that kind of
Right.
what sets you guys apart, and that's why a lot of people want to link to your content.
Right, because it is original and it
Yeah.
does tell a propelling story, right?
Mm.
And we try to get the data as sort of like reactionary as possible. And so I think that having data that draws reactions out of people is a good strategy because a lot of content's pretty boring out there, right?
Mm.
It's pretty mundane, a lot of repetition. So to have something that can draw an emotional reaction from somebody, I
Yeah.
think is important and becoming more and more rare, especially with the AI use that's happening. It comes at things in a less emotional way than a human can. So I think that yeah, trying to draw emotion and reaction from people is a good strategy.
Yeah.
So for example, one of our first data studies, we investigated Amazon reviews, and there was like a huge uptick in Amazon or AI generated Amazon reviews, of course, after the launch of ChatGPT, and people were angry about it. They were like, "Oh my gosh, all of these like," and also the story was, 1-star reviews and 5-star reviews are more likely to be AI generated than the 2, 3s, and 4s.
Ah, really?
So like extreme reviews are more likely to be AI generated, which um, which prompts you to ask questions about motive. So what's the motive of that? Obviously, smear campaigns and obviously self promotion, right? And that
So they were
That in
not real
itself.
people. They were not real. So they are basically just maybe the owner of the company is generating all these from Fiverr or something like that, or
Exactly.
someone else
Yeah.
doing it for them, right? Is that how it
Right.
works?
Exactly. And so generating these like strong reactionary, whether you really, really hate the product or really, really love it, if the data is showing that though that is more likely to be driven by like self-promotion or by a smear campaign, that makes people like untrusting of platforms like Amazon. If you make a purchase off Amazon, are you looking at the reviews? I am. And if you see a review that's a 5-star and you're less likely to trust it, is that going to impact your e-commerce buying decisions? And so a lot of people would say yes, that would. So I think that draws reaction and emotion from people where it's like, oh, I feel lied to by this platform. I'm not going to purchase from them anymore.
Very interesting. I think
Yeah,
that has existed before though, and people doing that, but with just Fiverr, for example. So I guess it's even more.
sure.
It's like the amplification of things is getting more common. Like now, it's coming more
Exactly.
spam books, more spam content, and it's like the rise. I mean, you have been around for a while as well, so you saw before you could have an exact match domain in Google, and you can like rank for it. And they crack down on this, so it's like a little bit
Right.
slow sometimes to crack down on certain things. But I think normally they get a hang of it. But as I said, I think it's not, you have to be careful with who you trust. Even Google, I think you should not always trust the sources because they might have an agenda too. I think that's the
Right.
negative thing, that they might push something on the first page in certain topics. Usually in maybe our field, it's normally good, let's say marketing and stuff. We would assume is pretty much the great content that ranks, but certain topics is not. I think
No,
that's something
totally.
just to
And
be aware of.
you see it all the time with and this is like totally, we can get into this another day,
Yeah.
but you see
Yeah.
that all the time with what they're pushing in terms of mainstream like Western media, for example, like
Yeah.
what angle and what stories are being told there, and what narratives are being told, right? So I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
we see that all the time.
Yeah, we can
Mhm.
get the platform and stuff like that happened with some big creators. But another
Right.
question, what kind of tools do you use? AI tools specifically, or any other tools that are useful that integrate AI into it? Is there anything that you use personally or in with originality? Anything you would like to share?
Yeah, well, so ChatGPT I use all the time to help me. I'm still a big supporter and user of Jasper.
Yeah.
I like it. I've been a customer since pretty much day one.
Tell me a little bit
They,
why you would use that now. I'm interested because I was a
yeah,
customer originally. I was a customer and I was using it. Then now I don't see as much of a use case personally. But I'm just
yeah,
interested to see what you like about it because we haven't heard too many people speak about it. But it was one of the first ones that came out.
yeah. So we do have. So I still have like another business that I write content for, and I have specific clients that have specific voices, and I am able to basically select my voice that I've created through like many years of using this tool for specific clients, and it creates better content than I can create using a tool like ChatGPT for specific clients.
That's great.
It also allows you to load facts and sort of resources that helps you craft more accurate content for specific clients. So that's sort of my use case.
That's awesome. And do you use
Mm.
other tools, maybe not specifically for writing, but any other
Yeah,
tools that you might use?
originality for everything.
Of
So
course.
as I said, like I'm responsible for the content team for originality. I write a lot of content. We also have a team of content writers. I scan all of their stuff through originality just to see how much AI they're using. I don't like, and I still read every piece. So I'm like, if this is a valuable piece of content, I'm not going to send it back if it's got a little bit of an elevated AI score, but I will send it back if it's got an elevated AI score. And if I feel like it's just like scratching the surface of what I wanted them to write about. So I use originality to like help inform the origin of where our content is coming from. I also use, what else? I really like Canva. And like, so I create all of our creatives and stuff off of Canva. And they've got an AI element integrated into it now for image creation, which is cool. I've played around with a few image generators and I haven't been like overly impressed. Maybe I don't know how to use them properly. I don't know. But I haven't gotten the hang of it with the image creators. But that's kind of at the extent that it goes. I don't use AI in everything that I do. I try to figure out the best, most efficient use of AI. I've used it for some of our cold email campaigns. I've used it before in some of those, which I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. But it helped sort of create the bones for like sequences and follow-up sequences and stuff.
No, totally.
Um,
I think that's great because I see this. That's kind of a trend I see with a lot of tools that you might already be using, like Canva. That's been around for a long time. Now they're going all in with AI. I don't think their AI is the best for certain things. I think they have AI built in already for a long time in the background remover and things like that to generate original images. I don't think it's the best. I do think I'm really impressed by Midjourney. It's a little bit more technical, but you can do crazy photorealistic stuff, and I am impressed by that, to be honest. I'm really impressed.
So maybe I'm not like tech savvy enough for Midjourney because I've tried it and I just like could not figure it out. And it was just like not for me. It spat out the weirdest stuff. So it was like
I've tried like DALL-E 3 and this because it's built in. I'm sure you've tried that as well because it's built in. I don't think that it's as good, but it does a pretty good job. I'm sure this is gonna get better because here's something interesting as well to, as we're wrapping up this, I think we can talk about images in blog posts because for the longest time, people use just Unsplash images and things like that. And I don't think that's the best for Google search because that's not original. It's a stock photo at the end of the day that you can use it legit, of course, but I don't think, because a lot of sites are using the same photo, I don't think that's good because you're not going to probably rank for this because in the code of that photo or something, you will see kind of who wrote it and you will see where it's published first and things like that. So I do think AI has an upper hand on that because you can create really stunning art on brand for your site and publish that. And you don't need to use have a designer or something on staff if you have a blog, for example. I think that's 100%. A great use case.
That's a great use case for it. So all of our blog banners for each of our blog posts are AI generated using.
Really? I can see that.
Yeah,
okay. All right. I'm just checking now actually here on the site. This is cool. I do see somewhere. What do you know what they are using your team for this?
I would have to ask my team what they're using. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's great. We love it, and we know like it was such a pain point for us when we were running our content marketing agency was the editorial process with validating images to make sure that they weren't stolen from the internet was a huge pain for us because you obviously trust your contractors and you trust your writers not to take images that are not free for use. But there were definitely instances that some of those squeaked by and you get a cease and desist.
Oh wow! Okay. You have gotten that really. I know my friend Jan. He got that one time. I think he had to pay a fine to someone in Germany. I think it's crazy. I never had this. I think maybe I didn't use images like that, but in the beginning I wasn't as careful. Now if I would use, actually I use my own images mostly. Like I even publish some to Unsplash. I have my own because I travel. I publish some photos there, so I just uploaded them to get easy access via the API to my site.
Great.
Not have to upload them every time. That's what I did.
No, that's great. But I do think that it really has changed the game for people who just want to use a nice image and don't want to worry about the origin of that image because they know it's theirs. And I think that has come a long way over the last few years because it was definitely a huge pain point for us, and we spent a lot of resources making sure that we weren't using images that were copyrighted.
Totally. I think something else, like in the way when you're producing content, there's a lot of things that goes into it when you upload it to your WordPress, for example. And before, maybe it was more tedious, but now you have all these tools like with, I don't know what you guys are using, but let's say Rank Math, they have Content AI, they have a score for the content in there. They're similar to like Surfer and Content at Scale. I'm sure you do certain things as well for your content. But how do you ensure that it actually includes the keywords and they have the right balance, the right amount of words. I think this is
Right.
all like AI based. That's a really cool use case, especially for like the written content, because this would take a lot of time to figure out without these kind of tools, I think. So this is great to just use that
For
because it's
sure.
available.
For sure. And I mean, we've been seeing that for such a long time with like
Yeah.
functions like Yoast, for
Yeah.
example, on the back end of WordPress. I mean, it was pretty shitty. But it was, sorry, if I'm not allowed to swear on.
No, that's why I rank it. I mean, that's a good point actually, because Yoast, well, I was using it and it was not great, to be honest. It was
It
like
wasn't great, and it had like zero
that's how rank
correlation.
math came up. That's how rank
Yeah.
math came.
Yeah, exactly. There was like, we did so many data like studies on the like use of Yoast within content, and there was zero correlation between ranking factors and the use of Yoast. However, we did use and implement a tool called MarketMuse. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I know of them. They did also some events around AI and stuff
Yeah.
like that, I believe. So really
Yeah. We've been big partners with them for a long time with previous businesses, and they're great, and their tool is awesome. And there was a very good correlation between the use of their tool within our editorial processes and stuff, and ranking factors for content. So tools like that have done a very good job with figuring out how to suggest actual guidelines for content that will lead to good ranking factors.
I haven't used their tool, but can you explain a little bit briefly what the MarketMuse is called? I'll link it up in the description as well.
Yeah. So
but
I haven't.
What does it do? Like, is that like a SaaS-based product,
Yeah.
or how does it work, or integrate with your site, WordPress, or something like that?
So you would how we used it, and obviously it's been a few years. I haven't used it in a while. Because we, exited the business and stuff, but we used it within our editorial process, where we would, our editors would basically scan the piece of content, see where it fell in terms of how optimized it was for ranking. And then they would, if it wasn't within sort of like the green zone for optimization, they would use their suggestions within their editing process, and like implement certain keywords in specific places that would help the piece of content have better chances of ranking for those keywords.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, two final questions, I believe. So what's your number one piece of advice you would give to creators who want to get into the world of AI, get started with this and implement this in their business? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I think the biggest message in terms of, like, I've seen a lot of content, I've created a lot of content. I see what ranks, I see what doesn't. I see what websites get de-indexed. I see what websites get banned from advertising platforms like Google AdSense. I've seen it all. And the main thing that is going to keep you in the game of content is having your human voice, your original take, your original opinions, your thought leadership within your content. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's so important. Don't lose that piece to AI. Yeah, is my main advice.
It's really good. I love it. This is great advice. And the final one, was there any question you wanted me to ask, but I didn't? Or do you have any final words you want to share before we wrap this one up?
Ooh, let me think. I don't think so. I feel like I should. What are you most excited about with AI and
I love it.
Yeah, what are you most excited about?
I'm really excited that I don't have to do the mundane tasks that I hated to do before. That's what I'm most excited about, that I can sit here, record this video, I can bring this video into Descript, I can have the descriptions done for YouTube, I might tweak it, but I get a lot of it done. I can get the tags done for my YouTube videos, whatever I upload, or for summits, I can get description for this video, for this talk here that you're sharing about, the content production and how to go about it with AI and things like that. I can, I don't have to think as much about it. And when I'm getting it back, I can say, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and I tweak it a little bit, but I'm saving so much time in this process. And of course, I'm excited about that I might be able to, I mean, I can already do that, but it's going to be more accessible to just have my own voice in other languages, basically create an avatar of myself, like in maybe let's have my voice in Spanish or different languages. I think that's going to be exciting to reach new audiences potentially. I think that might be integrated to YouTube and things like that. I mean, we have already HeyGen, we have 11 Labs. I'm sure maybe you've heard of these platforms. I think it's just more, it's going to be more accessible. I think for long form content, this is still very expensive technology. It costs a lot to do it. It's like, you know, it's not so everyone will use it on YouTube, but they have already tested that on YouTube and platforms like this for bigger creators. And I think it's really interesting. I don't know if you've seen that as well.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love that you. Again, I think this is the theme of our talk, is that you're using all of these tools to sort of like amplify your voice rather than replace it. And I love that take on it. And I think that should be the takeaway for people when they're implementing AI into their workflows.
Absolutely. And where can people connect more with you? I know Originality, we'll leave a link to it, for Originality.ai. We might have a special link there as well for you if you want to try it out. And it would be really useful for you to do that, of course, if you have any form of written content, you want to fact check things, see if it's plagiarized and all this, if you work with teams. But where can people find out more about you if they want to find who Maddie is?
Oh yeah. Well, we are on, like, I'm on LinkedIn. We have Twitter. What else do we have? We've got a Facebook group that we encourage people to join, so that they can have more of sort of a like personal conversation with us if they'd like to talk about our tool. So yeah, there's lots of platforms. I can send you the links for those.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll leave it. I leave the links in the description so you can check it out. And if you have any takeaways, we covered a lot in this session. Leave it in the comments below. Let us know there. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you in the next one.